Thank you, Madam Chair. My time is short, so I would ask that you answer yes or no. Mr. Woods, is your company taking advantage of the crisis in Ukraine to keep prices artificially high in order to increase your own profits?
Absolutely not.
Mr. Worth, is your company taking advantage of the crisis in Ukraine to keep prices artificially high in order to increase your own profits?
No, we are not.
Mr. Lawler, is your company taking advantage of the crisis in Ukraine to keep prices artificially high in order to increase your own profits?
Absolutely not.
Ms. Watkins, is your company taking advantage of the crisis in Ukraine to keep prices artificially high in order to increase your own profits?
No, we are not.
And you all recall that you're under oath. Do any of you wish to change your answers? Hearing none. All right. The Biden administration's fiscal year 22 budget request listed the following as a key objective: not funding work that directly subsidizes fossil fuels, including work that lowers the cost of production, lowers the cost of consumption, or raises the revenues retained by producers of fossil fuels. Do statements like this facilitate more domestic production? Yes or no, Ms. Watkins? Yes or no?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the context within which that was stated.
This was the president's budget objectives. One of the top objectives of his budget was to not fund work that directly subsidizes fossil fuels, including work that lowers the cost of production, lowers the cost of consumption, or raises revenues retained by producers of fossil fuels. Mr. Lawler, do statements like that facilitate more domestic production? Yes or no?
Well, I'm unfamiliar with those particular comments, so I could not
All right.
provide any
So
answer.
so apparently everybody wants to get into the weeds and hide behind words. The president says he wants to make sure that we do not lower the cost of production. Is that going to make you produce more or less? Mr. Woods, more or less?
I think the government has a role in encouraging investment and creating a positive investment climate.
And when we create a negative climate, you produce less. Isn't that true? Yes or no?
There tends to be a chilling effect with negative
There you
words.
go. There you go. Mr. Worth, you want to weigh in on this and give me a real answer? Yes or no? Is that hurting the production, or does that encourage you to produce when the president says in his budget document, not funding work that directly subsidizes fossil fuels, including work that lowers the cost of production, lowers the cost of consumption? That'd be the consumers that Mrs. DeGette's been complaining about having to pay these high prices, and they don't want to lower those prices. And when you hear statements like that, do you increase production? Yes or no?
Congressman, mixed messages from the government do not encourage us to make investments with confidence in future supply.
Well, and I appreciate you don't want to get stuck with answers, but the bottom line is that's not a mixed message. That's a clearly anti-fossil fuel message from the President of the United States at a time when he claims he wants increasing production. All right. President Biden recently has begun to stress short-term need to increase oil and natural gas output and expedite LNG, liquefied natural gas, project development. But in his fiscal year 23 budget request, it focuses almost entirely on transitioning away from fossil fuels. It even proposes tax hikes on oil and gas production. The proposal alleges that oil, gas, and coal tax preferences distort markets by encouraging more investment in the fossil fuel sector than would occur under a neutral system. The provision also alleges that this market distortion is detrimental to long-term energy security and is inconsistent with the administration's policy of supporting a clean energy economy. Are those proposed tax hikes on the oil and gas industry an incentive to explore and develop more domestic production? What say you, Mr. Sheffield?
Less production.
Mr. Moncrief, more or less production?
Less production.
All right, thank you. General McMaster, in your written testimony, you talk about America's role in defeating tyranny in World War II, the U.S. provided more than 85% of the Allies' oil use. What do you see as America's trajectory today as a global leader helping to meet the rising demand for oil? And you have 5 seconds.
I'll give him
How about,
The trajectory is negative. We need to reverse it immediately. We should not be beholden to authoritarian powers for energy supply. And if we have the right investments, we can make up for the gap in supply now that we're all paying for. Thank you.
thank you, I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Chair now recognizes the